Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So today we've got to talk about propaganda, specifically how propaganda relates to terrorism. A couple of weeks ago, I did a video on terrorism, what it is and how it works. I strongly suggest you go back and watch it, but the key takeaways that are important to this conversation is that terrorist is not a slur. This guy is a terrorist, but it's not because he walked into a room and killed a bunch of innocent people. He's a terrorist because he's using a strategy. And that strategy is to provoke an overreaction from the establishment. Now, when that overreaction occurs, and it always does, if the general populace identifies more with the terrorist group than the establishment, well, then they start siding with the terrorist. That's how it works. That's what terrorism is designed to do. Fascists have a very hard time with this because they're not relatable. Fascists are not relatable people. Okay? There's not a whole lot that can be done to fascists that is going to offend the general population. Hang them from lampposts. Nobody cares. They're fascists. The reason this manifesto was such a brilliant piece of propaganda was because it attempted to make him relatable. There's little nods to various groups throughout it, like the Navy SEAL Copypasta. For those that don't know, that whole bit about being a Navy SEAL, it's a text meme that's been circulated forever. So it was a nod to that group. Subscribe to Pootie Pie. It's a nod to that group. His ideological journey, which I'm fairly certain is manufactured, but we'll get to that. It was a nod to these various groups. Pootie Pie. Is he a racist? I don't know. I've never watched anything that he's ever done. I know that there's some kind of debate over it. But for the sake of conversation, we're going to say he's not. Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because he was mentioned, there will be a backlash against him. It's inevitable. What do his fans then have to do? They have to make a choice. Do they defend him? And if they do, who do they begin to identify with? That's how terrorism works. That's how it spreads. That's how people become radicalized. Now, the ideological journey from left to right is, I doubt that it's true. I doubt that it's true because it's a very odd journey, and the other thing that's very unique is that they all have militant groups in them. It's almost as if they were specifically chosen in hopes of radicalizing the militants within each one of these groups. The Libertarians are mentioned. Yeah. And there is a Libertarian to fascist pipeline that exists. Seriously, you guys need to clean out your house. Y'all need to get your stuff in order. Good luck in the next election. Hi, the Libertarian Party. We're the people that brought you the crying Nazi and the New Zealand shooter. Right now, there's a whole bunch of libertarians getting defensive. Don't do that. That's the whole point. Don't do that. Everything I just said, it's true, but the way I presented it, it was to make you get defensive. Don't do that. What's your response? Yeah, he was a libertarian. He didn't start killing people until he became a fascist. He didn't start hurting people until he embraced white nationalism. You've got to keep that wall up. It's the most important thing you, as an average citizen, can do to combat terrorism. You have to keep the terrorist group marginalized. You have to keep them unrelatable. That's what's important. It's extremely important that you do this. Because if this group becomes relatable to the average person, people start to radicalize. They start to identify with the terrorist group more than the establishment. And in this case, that's a really, really bad thing. Sometimes terrorism can be used for good. Go back and watch the other video. It's a strategy. It's a strategy. The founding fathers were terrorists. Textbook. This is not a situation like that. This is a situation in which if people begin to identify with this group of people, there will be lots of bloodshed of innocence. That's what's going to happen. So we have to make sure that they stay unrelatable and point out the flaws in their ideology. I had somebody tell me when I talked about white culture, said that white culture really meant Western civilization. And that's, a drive towards more independence and, individualism. Well, that's kind of true. I don't see how collectivizing yourself by race, by skin tone, supports that. It's actually in direct contradiction to it. Point out the flaws in the ideology and make sure they stay unrelatable. That is what you can do as the average person to stop this form of terrorism. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good night.